Hey, welcome back to the channel, guys. I missed you. I really did. So, in this video, we're gonna look into my newly rebuilt transmission and why it's getting hot. Hopefully we can solve it. Stay tuned. Alright, so on the rack is my 1968 C10. It is LS swapped with a 4.8 liter truck motor. It's got a 4L60E, which you're never gonna believe this, but it blew up on me. It's crazy. The 4L60 blew up. I mean, that never happens, right? Yeah, it does. So I had it rebuilt by a local guy. Here's a quick story of what happened and why we're here at this point, this juncture with this under here and on the rack and everything. So we got about 500 miles on this thing. The other day we were going to a car show. So there's a road that's 26 miles of flat ground here in Florida on my way to where I'm going out in Cocoa. So we're ripping down this road. We're doing about, I don't know, 75 miles per hour, okay? Trans is running 165, 170 on the money, no problem. Haven't had really any issues yet besides the torque converter lockup. It's been a little weird. Sometimes I got to kind of let out of it and it'll lock up. It'll command it on my monitor. It'll show, hey, I'm commanding I want lockup, but I don't see the RPM drop as much as it should. So that's kind of been intermittent. But at this point it's locked up and we're just ripping right along. We get down to the end of the 26 miles, we hit the stop sign. I look down, it goes from like 170, 175, 180, 180, it starts climbing. I'm like, what in the world? So I make a right by a quarter mile down the road. That thing's 200, 210. I pull over. I stop. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, what in the heck is going on? It hits 233 degrees. I shut it down. Now we're talking about trans temp here. Trans fluid temp, not the motor. The motor's running like 192. Motor's fine. So I'm like, okay, well, that's bad. So I let it sit a minute, fire it back up. I'm like, I'm taking it back home. Get back on that road. We're ripping down that road. It's cooling off. 230, 220, 210, 200, gets about 195. It's just chilling there. All the way in, 26 miles, boom, back down to the end. Go to turn around, because you gotta do like a U-turn to come back to my house. So we have to hit stop sign, we're doing the U-turn. By the time, I mean, you're talking a minute, 2 minutes, couple minutes max. That thing's climbing like crazy. By the time I turned and got on the road to rip back to the house, it hit 247. 247, trans temp. Again, coolant was perfect. So I ripped to the house, it starts cooling down again. Get it here, shut it down. Call my trans guy, so I'm, hey, what's going on here, buddy? You just rebuilt it, we got problems. He's like, man, if it's shifting good and blah, 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 sounds like you got something maybe plugged up in your cooler. I'm thinking, well, the cooler's probably working because when we're ripping, it's cooling, but whatever. So he wants me to flush it out. So what I'm gonna do, just to do it, we're gonna drain the fluid. We're gonna look at the magnetic plug. We're gonna see if we have any material in there. We better not, I hope not. We're gonna pull the pan. We're gonna look at the pan. See if there's anything in there. Hopefully not. Then the torque converter lockup intermittent thing is kind of bugging me. So we're gonna change out the torque converter solenoid, to control solenoid in there. I bought a new one from AC Delco. We'll splice that in, jam him in there. We're gonna pull the filter, we're gonna change that. We're gonna pull the cooler lines, we're gonna flush those, flush the cooler itself, blow it all out with air, the cooler lines and the cooler itself, blow them out with compressed air, get all that nice and clean and out of there, make sure that's all good. And if everything looks good and there's not big chunks of stuff in there, which hopefully not, we're gonna put it all back together and put some fluid in it, light her off and take it down the road again and see what happens. So first thing to do, we're gonna get this fluid out of here. So we're gonna start with that. So got the pan off. I don't know, I'm sure you can see in the video, the fluid was disgusting. It looked brown. It looked like motor oil and smelled like gear oil. And I'm not real sure why. It's that fluid. I guess it's burnt, but don't smell burnt. It smells like gear oil. It's gross. And it was red when I put it in, that's for sure. So this is our solenoid right here that we're gonna be going after for the torque converter control. So we gotta cut the wires and splice in. Either that, or I could opt out and look into buying a harness, which is like, I guess this whole thing here goes up to the plug up here. You can see it there, and it comes down and goes around and whatever. I don't know yet. I'm gonna see how much slack I have. I may just order a harness too, I don't know. Let's go look at the pan. Okay, so we're over at the pan. You can see it looks like there's probably some material in here, which it's a fresh rebuild, so you're gonna have that. There was nothing on the drain plug whatsoever. There was no metal on there or anything. This is probably some clutch material from it breaking in. I do have a new gasket because it got a little jacked up right there. I don't think I'm gonna reuse this one. I mean, I probably could, honestly. It's not tore, and it's in really good shape. So I guess this looks fine, is what I'm saying, because that looks like normal. It's breaking in. Here you can kind of see the fluid here. It looks like motor oil. I mean, it smells like gear oil. It is disgusting. Probably because it got so hot. It's kind of odd, but that's what we're working with. All right, guys, so we got the new solenoid in there. So here's the new solenoid. So we took this out. There's a spring clip in here. Pulled him out, unclipped that. That slides out. Two 10mm bolts, pulled it down, put the new one up, cut and spliced right here. So I soldered those in, shrink wrapped it, went ahead, did that, went ahead and put him back in, put the clip back in, put that guy back on. We'll put the new filter on. So we got a brand new filter here. We'll just kind of work it up. Sorry, just doing it one-handed. So you want to make sure that's up good and tight for sure. You don't want that going around anywhere. If it's in there real nice, nice and neat. All right, that's it. So now we'll go ahead and we'll get the pan back on. I'll clean this up real good, clean up the pan real good. We'll get the pan back on, torque down these bolts, and then the next thing is going to be these cooler lines, which you can see they're AN lines. I'll pull those off up here where they go into the transmission, and then we'll start blowing those all out and run some cleaner through there, everything like that, and then blow them out with air. So you can see this fluid is just gross. Looks like motor oil. Like I said, it smells like gear oil. It's disgusting. So anyway, this is back in and back together. Wiring looks good. This is gonna be good. I did test this with some 12 volts. It does click and everything, so hopefully that'll solve that issue. Let's move on to the next thing. All right, guys, we got the trans pan on and torqued. So we went ahead and torqued up all the bolts plus the drain plug. So now we're gonna disconnect these cooler lines that are right up here, which you can see that we got one right here and one right there. All right, so they're AN fittings, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. We'll disconnect those. We'll drain them into this pan right here. And then I'll go up top and I will flush the lines out, blow them out with air, and then flush out the cooler, blow it out with air, hook the lines all back up. And I think that might be it for the night. And then maybe tomorrow I'll come out, put the fluid in it so I can open the doors. It's dark now and there's mosquitoes everywhere. And we don't want to get bit up by mosquitoes. So what we'll do is we'll do all that, get it ready for fluid, maybe dump a little bit of fluid in it, no big deal, but we need to run it obviously to top it off completely. So we'll do that tomorrow. But let's get these lines off and blown out and everything like that, and go from there. All right, so we had the lines here, disconnected them, and I flushed them with carb cleaner real good. There was a little bit of, I don't know, coming out of the line itself that was just the line, really nothing. I mean, a little bit of the burnt transmission fluid, and it stinks. Again, I'm gonna say it a million times, it's disgusting. It smells like gear oil. I'm gonna say that again because it's disgusting. This one here was the one connected to the cooler. So I blew it through the cooler, out the bottom of the cooler. This line connects up there and comes out here. That one was a little bit more nasty, I guess. So we blew it out real good. Carb cleaner, I did a whole can through that thing. Soaked her down and blew it out with air, both of them. Air compressor, blew them out real good. It made a mess, went everywhere, you know. So that's that. So now we're gonna hook these lines back up. These are nice and clean, and we know they're nice and clean. So we're gonna go ahead and hook them back up, and then I think that's gonna be it for tonight. Tomorrow I'll probably come out, throw some fluid in this thing, get these doors open, and start running it and topping off the fluid, and then we'll go out and test drive and see what happens. So stay tuned for that. All right, it's the next day. We got our fluid here. We're running the Valvoline Dexmerc for Dex 3 applications. So I'm gonna go ahead and dump in, I don't know, about 5 quarts into this thing, and then I'll light it off and let the pump circulate it and get it pumped up through. Right here's our external, this is a B&M stack plate cooler right here. So it just comes from there, comes around, up through here, down, back to the transmission. I do not go through the radiator. This is just external only. So that's what we're doing. We're gonna go ahead and dump that in and light this thing off and start servicing it and see how this thing goes. Topped off, we ran it, just kind of started it, ran it through the gears, topped off the fluid. Now we're going to take it for a quick test drive and see if the converter's locking up, see if the trans is shifting good, see if it gets hot. Then we'll bring it back. So far the leaks are good. We'll bring it back, we'll double check leaks and go from there. All right, let's do this thing. Hop in, bud. Shifting good. Feels pretty good. Alright, we've been driving around a bit. Doesn't seem like the converter is locking up. It's commanding lockup here, but our RPMs around 60 miles per hour should be like 1700. And so it's not locked up for sure. So we're gonna head back to the house. Our temperature's still looking okay. I feel like it's a little warm still for the temperature it is outside. It never got hot when we were normally driving, but when we would slow down is when it would start getting hot. So we'll have to slow down and check it again. But what we're gonna do is go back. So we've already changed that solenoid. Now we're gonna go back and check the plug on top of the transmission. I should have did that already. And I didn't, I totally forgot. So we'll throw it back on the lift, we'll unplug it, look in there, make sure everything's plugged in good and tight, and come out and run it again, see what happens. Alrighty, back in the shop, we're gonna pull this plug, take a look. Oh, that all looks good and clean. Maybe a little A little dirt right there maybe. I don't think that's gonna do anything, but let's check the pins. This mirror is acting all crazy. All right. Make sure they're all straight, not broke. I mean, that's a new harness. You're supposed to replace the harness with the transmission. And everything looks good there. So maybe we'll get a rag and wipe this out or something. Try to wipe it out, get a little cleaner maybe, I don't know. Oh yeah. Yeah, just a little dirt, that ain't nothing. So nothing there. So we'll just replug her in. Nice solid click, that's it. Maybe we'll take it for one more quick rip and go from there, see if it's any good or not. So let's hit the road one more time. HP tuners, I went ahead, hooked it up, scanning. I'm gonna do a data log. Pulled up a bunch of the parameters here for transmission, and we're just gonna keep an eye on them. We're gonna take it for a rip. As you can see, yeah, we're just about out of gas. So let's go ahead, get some fuel, watch this data log, see what happens. All right, here we go. All right, we just got back. I'm gonna show you the HP tuners here. We did 3 data logs. I did a cold, a warm, and a hot. It did get up on the hot around 210 again, way too hot for the temperature it is outside. And we can see that the converter is actually locking up when the transmission fluid is cold, and it is not locking up as soon as it warms up. So I'll show you the real quick log here, just so you can have an idea. If you're interested in that kind of thing, this is when it's cold and it actually locks up. So let's just take a look here real quick and I'll show you what's going on. So we come in here, this is the scan tool. So right now we're at 61 miles per hour, 2200 RPMs. We do want it to apply torque converter. You can see we're not actually applied here because we are still slipping. It's at about 600 RPM. So the converter itself is slipping. So as we're cruising, we'll watch up here, we'll watch our speed and our RPM. So we're cruising here, 63 miles an hour. We're gonna wait for this to drop. We're gonna watch some of this stuff change. There we go. So we dropped. So you can see we're at 64 miles an hour, 1700 RPM. It is applying it now per the computer. You come down here to the RPM. For the slip on the converter, it's at 0 RPM. It was at 500, now it's at 0. So it's locked up. It is actually locked up. We're at 1700 RPM at 64 miles. That's perfect. This is working. So what I'll do real quick, let me pull up the other log and I'll show you what's going on when it's not locking up. Okay, so here's our data log when the transmission was hot. So it got up to 210 degrees, like I was saying earlier, which is way too hot. I mean, it'll live there, I guess, for a while, but it's only 75 degrees outside. It should never be that hot. It's asking for lockup. It's still slipping. It's not actually locked up here. You see we're at 63, 2000 RPMs, and I'll push play on this real quick. And you can see I was just cruising along here, trying to get it to lock up, and I did this for a long time, up and down, slowing down, speeding up, running it right at the same speed. 62, we're at 21, that's way too many RPMs, so you know it's not locked up there. You can see it's asking for it. You can see it's not locked up. We're still slipping on the converter. It's obviously not actually locking up. Torque converter mode says locked, so it should be locked, but it's not. It's not actually locked. So computer's asking for it. We're just not mechanically getting it at this point. Especially soon, I mean, as soon as the transmission warms up, when it's cold, it is actually locking up, and as it warms up, that stops. It just keeps slipping, trans fluid keeps getting hot, and that's the data log for after it's warmed up. If you're hearing that noise, yep, that's my shop. So I got a metal building, it makes all kinds of creaking noises as it heats up, cools down, expands, contracts, whatnot. But anyway, so that's what you're hearing in the background. So the data logs, back to that real quick. So basically you see when it's cold, it asks for lockup, it locks up. When it's warm or hot, the computer's asking for lockup, converter's not locking up. So that's a problem right there. It's some kind of, I feel it's mechanical because the computer side seems to be working. So I'm thinking at this point it's probably the converter. So I'll call the transmission guy, that'll be the next step. See what he wants me to do. We've already flushed it and flushed all the lines, flushed the cooler, fluid, everything, and obviously it did not work. We got the data right here. So it's still getting hot, converter's not locking up, all the things that are bad, right? Shouldn't be doing on a rebuilt transmission. So we gotta see what he says, what he wants us to do next. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see what we gotta do to fix this thing. I feel like transmission's coming out either way at this point, but all right, so I appreciate you watching. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. I'm gonna try to keep the video at a weekly basis at this point. So thanks again for watching, and see you in the next one. Let's get this thing fixed.